Could it be? Could it be? It is out of here!
And it's a no-hitter! Unbelievable! Ruiz and Halladay embrace!
Champions!
It is bedlam at the bank as Bryce Harper has put the Phillies on top!
We're talking about the Lions here.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Specific Jawns podcast, your premier podcast for all things Phillies. It is myself, Pat Barker, my good friends Mike Sambuco and Carl Bacuti returning here. And gentlemen, at the last time we spoke, the Phillies were not a playoff team. Here we are, sitting here. They're about to go, as we record this, they're about to finish off a rout of the Marlins, it looks like, and move to 40-33. They are in pole position for a playoff spot, a wild card spot. A lot has changed, and we're going to get into it. I'll tell you one thing that has not changed, and that is the fact that you should hit that subscribe button. You should leave a comment. You should turn on the notification bell. You should do all that stuff. We're trying to build this thing, so do me a favor, help us out with that. But let's jump right into it and talk about these Philadelphia Phillies. As I said, 40-33 after tonight's game, and in, I believe, second in the wild card race, right behind St. Louis for that number one spot. But coming into tonight, a -16 run differential. This is not how you draw this thing up if you want to have a good team. You don't say, oh, we will get outscored over the course of the year. But here we are. It's kind of working for them. My question to you guys, and take it wherever you'd like, is this feasible for the second half of the season? Is there any world where they remain a playoff team while continuing to be outscored by their opponents? Tell me what you think.
I'll go ahead and say yes off the bat. I think it's a function of how our starting rotation is constructed. I think if you really look at the contrast between the top two and the bottom two, and Luzardo is sort of that pivot point. We hope that he'll group himself with the top two as the season progresses. But it's been that good between Sanchez and Wheeler and half of Luzardo, and it's been that bad with Nola and Painter or Walker on the hill. You get absolute blowouts when you've got those latter two on the hill, and you've got a chance to shut a team out with Sanchez and Wheeler on any given night. I think that our offense is exactly what we expected it to be, what it continues to be and will be. They're not gonna out slug a team in a tightly contested pitching matchup. But we're going to see. I don't expect them, if they even get to a positive run differential this season, I'll be impressed. I don't see the starting pitching depth getting any better at the trade deadline. I think that's a goal, but I'm not sure how they're going to pull it off. And it's just going to be more of what we're used to. But I think it's enough to make the playoffs. I think it's enough to surprise somebody in the playoffs. Anything can happen, but we're probably headed towards a similar outcome as the past few years, and we're just going to have to try to enjoy those summer moments when we're beating up on bad teams and bad pitching. That's what this team does, and that's what keeps people coming back, at least through September.
Yeah, and I'd say we came off our last pod around the time that the Phillies were coming off that about 2.5 week stretch where they just could not score more than 4 runs. Since that time, they've done it a couple times, but really they haven't been blowing anybody out outside of this Marlins series. It's been, call it a game and a half of really good offensive play with some good pitching. They haven't really had a sustainable run this season where they're winning games by more than 1 or 2 runs. I mean, their record in 1-run games this year is fantastic, but you just got to worry that they're taxing the bullpen a bit too much. I do worry about Duran's workload. He's the type of guy that says, I want to pitch, but it's a long season, and we're still only in the middle of June right now, and he's a key portion of that bullpen because he's really the the anchor that you guys need and rely on and will rely on in the playoffs. Again, it all comes back to the offense for me. The starting pitching is reliable. The top three, I should say, is reliable. It's the offense that I think we're going to have a longer conversation about.
Yeah, I was trying to, because I don't want to brush past the point that, like, well, the offense is what we expected the offense to be, and this is kind of what happened last year. I wanted to find their run differential for last year. I was unable to find it quickly, and I didn't want to look like I was, playing a, Fruit Ninja on my phone instead of paying attention to you guys. I was listening. But I don't remember it being quite this egregious last year. Nor do I remember. I mean, look, it's been a boom or bust offense for the duration of the time that it's been this offense. But I do not remember quite this much bust. It has been a little bit better recently since we last talked. At the time we last talked, even though they were in the process of winning, it was still a pretty negative podcast because it was like they can't keep winning like this, scoring 2 and 3 runs. Well, now they're scoring a little bit more, but it's just not consistent at all. I mean, we were talking before we hit record. I was in Milwaukee for a friend's bachelor party this weekend, and part of the reason that they planned it around, Milwaukee, the bachelor party capital of the world, of course, is to see the Phillies on the road. And we lucked out. We went to the only game that was worth seeing as a Phillies fan. They beat the Brewers 9-8 on Saturday. 9 runs, 17 hits. The other 2 games combined, no runs on 5 hits. It is not conceivable to me that they can continue to play this level of baseball and make the playoffs. I guess anything is possible, but I have to think they're still searching for more, and certainly more consistency from their offense. And this is without even getting into the question of, if they do make the playoffs with this team, can they win? I know they say the pitching wins in the playoffs, but if you were around in 2011, that is not always the case. And Mike, you sent us a stat in the group chat the other day that was deeply upsetting about the performances they've had against playoff level arms. That ruined my day. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
So Phillies this year have not had success against the 3 teams that are leading the 3 NL divisions. So they're 3-9 against the Dodgers, Brewers, and Braves this season, and they're hitting 160 against the starting pitchers that they've faced. That's resulted in a 1.43 ERA against guys like Mizorowski, Harrison of the Brewers, Yamamoto, Sasaki, Wroblewski of the Dodgers, and Sale, Elder, Holmes, and Perez of the Braves. I mean, they have struggled against guys that they're likely to see in the playoffs. And that's why it's so hard to buy in right now. I don't think it's any secret that they're looking for bats to enhance their offensive prowess. I just am concerned that I don't think they have the depth in the farm system to really make the big move that they really need. And I also don't think it's just going to require one move to change things. I mean, there are so many holes on the right side of this, on the right side in their lineup. You have 3 reliable hitters in Harper, Schwarber, and I'll include Marsh in that. He's proven me wrong that he's able to hit lefties. He's able to play every day, and today was great to see him take advantage of leading off and drawing a leadoff walk, then hitting a home run in his second at bat. So it's great to see that happen, but there's got to be more to the lineup.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible to make the moves we need to walk into the playoffs feeling like, oh, we're a legit contender. We are the ones that we're a team to beat, except against the Dodgers. we're just not going to be in that position. We're going to have to hold our breaths and see what can happen in a short series and then a long series. Rely on our horses at the top of the rotation and hope that, a couple hits will go our way. I mean, the Dodgers series those weren't blowouts last year, and we were severely overmatched at pretty much every position. As I watched, the Mizurowski game on Friday, just an epic performance against us. All I could do was think about how upsetting it's been to watch this team under Topper, and we'll see about Mattingly, but that night I felt like it was more of the same. There's not a plate approach that adapts to a playoff caliber pitcher. When you're facing an ace like that, everybody needs to be sticking to a game plan as a unit, as a lineup. And what I saw them do Friday was the same thing I've seen them do in this entire era. They hunt fastballs early in the count. They're getting older and can't catch up to those fastballs, especially against the Miz. The guy's touching 103 on the regular that night. And then you're behind in the count quick, and you're out of the at-bat in very few pitches, 3 to 4 tops. Your goal needs to be to get that pitch count up. If you're not going to score for 4 or 5 innings, so be it, as long as you work that starter. And in this day and age, once they see that triple digits on the pitch count, they yank them, even in the playoffs. And every team, no matter how good they are, how well constructed, has those 6th and 7th inning relievers. And they pitch in the 6th and 7th inning because they are the soft underbelly of that squad, of that staff. You get to the 8th and 9th inning guys, then you're talking about big money guys, big stuff, strikeout stuff that you're going to be lucky to touch. You got to get to that 6th and 7th inning guy on any team and have a shot to do your thing as an offense. And I know that's so limiting. It sounds just like you put all your cards in an inning or two against a guy or two. But what other approach is there the way this lineup is constructed? And, facing the pitchers that we will face in the postseason. So I know it sounds, like kind of passive. I'm not going to come up with a million crazy moves that Dombo can make by the 31st of July. But I do think they still have a chance with the right game plan against anybody in the league.
And what makes it so frustrating is that you saw them have a great game plan against a guy like Paul Skeens in Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago. That was the epitome of what they should be doing against an ace like that. And then you see them against Jacob Mizurowski, and it's just like 2 different teams that we're looking at, 2 different approaches from every single guy in that lineup, and it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Now, in fairness, nobody's hit Mizurowski this year. He's on an otherworldly run. Some might say it's even better than Sanchez's run because it's been sustained a little longer. But, I don't want to make excuses for just one pitcher, but like you saw the same thing against Kyle Harrison on Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard Harper talk about, in the aftermath of the Mizurowski game, I'm glad we got to see him before the playoffs. And I'm kind of like, did you see him? Because I saw a lot of 1 and 2 pitch at bats, 3 at the most. Obviously, there were 15 Ks, so there were enough 3 pitch at bats. But 2 of those 3 were often not even competitive swings or looks. You're going to have to get your reps in against a guy like that. He's that dominant. That happens, and you're going to run into a wall sometimes. But they don't set themselves up to succeed, either later in that game or later in the season, the way I see it.
Yeah, a complete game with 15 strikeouts and under 100 pitches is absurd. It's absolutely, it's insane. I will say, even beyond getting to that soft underbelly in the regular season, managers are so quick to pull their guys in the playoffs. They want to overmanage. You have to give them a reason to do it. You have to put a little bit of pressure on. we could pick apart any decision that was made from a pitching perspective against the Dodgers last year. Any decision that was made was because the Dodgers put some sort of pressure on Rob Thompson, where he had to make a decision. When you're not getting runners on, the manager's job is real easy. You know how easy it is to sit back and watch Mizorowski do that and be like, I'm not going to get anybody up in the bullpen. Like, yeah, obviously. You have to put a little bit of pressure on him. And I'll tell you this, as, you know, watching the game intently on Saturday, and we had great seats. I'm not used to having good seats. I'm not used to paying Milwaukee prices on anything. So, you know, for Dodger Stadium nosebleeds, we were sitting 10 rows behind the Phillies dugout, and I watched intently, and I'm not sure the approach was really that much better against him, against Shane Drohan. You know, Sosa, the home run he hit was an 0-2. It was a waste pitch. It was an 0-2 pitch. It was high and outside. It was a foot out of the zone in both ways. And he swung at it anyway and hit a home run. Okay, great. I'm not sure we can count that as a really good approach. JT, the pitch he hit was right down the middle. Now, good. I'm glad that he's hitting that the way he should hit it. We need guys to hit that. And people will make mistakes. I'm not saying that, you know, we're never going to see mistakes again, or hitting mistakes is not a part of baseball. It is. But especially from the big guys. I swear to God, every time Harper came up, it was 0-2 before I could blink. That guy got in more 0-2 holes than anybody I've ever seen. Trey Turner had terrible at-bats. Did not hit the ball with any authority. Schwarber had good at-bats, but was weirdly a singles hitter for some reason. Leadoff Schwarber is Ricky Henderson, apparently. I don't know when that happened. But overall, to your point about the approach, I agree, Carl. The approach is just not changing. It's not getting better. And I found myself almost being jealous of the Brewers when they were sending up guys like Sal Frelick and David Hamilton and all these guys who were capable, in theory, of doing a hit and run, of bunting for a hit, of extending an at-bat, of hitting foul balls, of frustrating a pitcher, of drawing a walk. All of it. There's no world where I should be jealous of Sal Frelick, but here we are. So I don't know. I just, I'm trying my best to remain positive. I'm glad they're winning, but they gotta figure something out. They gotta get more from this offense, or else they're not gonna win this way. I refuse to go into the playoffs and I'm going to get excited regardless if they're there, but like, I don't want to get excited about a team where the game plan is win 2-1 on 2 solo homers. It's just not. It's not where
and it just brings, you know, every pitch, every swing of the bat into focus even more when games are that tight. And it's not like this team is the most fundamentally sound team. It's not like they're the best defensive team either. They have great pitching, and that's about it.
Yeah. So, hey, stranger things have happened. Teams have won a World Series. You know, the 2001 Arizona Diamondbacks just kept handing the ball to Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling and said, go get us a championship, and it happened. So I'm not saying it can't happen. I feel like you guys, I feel a little bit like the meme where the guy is about to get beheaded, and he looks at the other, he's like, first time? I feel like I was Carl last October, where I'm like, they can win. They shouldn't, but they could. And I had resigned myself to that. It's nice to see you, Carl, coming around to that line of thinking.
Yeah, there's no choice. I mean, I'm going to be a diehard Phillies fan no matter how much they abuse me. I mean, you know what this is like, and you can't be sitting here in mid-June with a team with this type of roster. I mean, otherwise I'd be, you know, staring at minor leaguers saying, what can we bring up? What can they show us the second half of the season that I can get excited about next year? We don't have that. Yeah, you just gotta kind of roll with this and hope for the best. And if there is a move that is made in late July that actually bears fruit to the point that we, are brought to a different level in the playoffs, I mean, I will be shocked. I don't see the landscape out there favoring the Phillies for anything. So I'm not even going to normally this time of year, I get my hopes up for that. I get my sights set on, a trade chip that we can pick up. I'm not even there. So I'm going straight to, like you just said, anything can happen in October with what we have.
It's pretty sad when you look at it and you're like, Harrison Bader, there's no chance we'll be able to pull off a move of that magnitude again this year. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, I was going to actually bring up the Giants because they've already kind of been rumored to be starting to, put some names out there. And that's like the first semblance of rumors that you're hearing about a selling team that's not just selling their impending free agents. A guy like Matt Chapman makes sense in theory, where it's a right-handed bat that's had, decent power, good defense, but just like a terrible contract. And you're almost resigned to the fact that it might be one of those types of guys because they don't have the farm system to attract the prizes of July deadlines. Like the trade deadline, a Buxton type to me is like a pipe dream because I just don't see them outbidding anybody else that's interested in an all-star center fielder.
Well, Nick Castellanos is available. Since the last time we talked, that is worth mentioning. He has been released hilariously by the Padres after they forced him to come back to Philadelphia, get a round of applause on a game in which he was benched, and then released him the next morning, which is it makes me think he pissed off somebody in San Diego too, because that seemed like a remarkably petty way to go about that. But either way, he's available, or we could do this thing that we're doing, where every month we call up a different guy from the minors, and he hits a home run, and we get all excited, and then he goes 0 for his next 22 and gets sent back down in favor of a different guy who's going to do the exact same thing. So that's fun.
I think the other meme of this season is just going to be Schwarber only hitting bombs in the 2-hole. He hit one today, and the 1-hole singles hitter might be in the 2-hole for a little longer if Brandon Marsh can take over the leadoff spot.
Let's talk about it. I'm glad you said this. Brandon Marsh bats leadoff tonight as a result of Trey Turner going on the shelf day to day with a very minor ailment. And Marsh 1 for 3 with a walk, 2 runs scored, 2 RBIs. Looked damn good out of the leadoff spot. He is hitting now .324 with an OPS of 863. He's playing every day. He's playing against righties. He's playing against lefties. I did not see this coming even remotely at the start of the season. I have been very pleasantly surprised. I've been blown away by the production we've gotten out of Brandon Marsh. And he's a guy that, in theory, would make a hell of a leadoff hitter. Then you got Trey Turner, last year's batting champion, who is lost at the plate. He has absolutely no idea what he's doing up there. And we saw right away when we got Trey Turner, and it took a coordinated fan effort to psychologically bring him to the point of being a .250 hitter. It took the entire fan base working together as one to make that happen. I'm just going to ask you, A, how do we fix Trey Turner? What is the move there? And B, could part of that now be move him down in the lineup and just turn Brandon Marsh loose at the top? But then the third part of that is lefty, lefty, lefty at the start. That doesn't seem particularly likely. Tell me about all of it. Turner, Marsh, what do you think?
Mike, I'll let you go first.
Well, frankly, I'm concerned about Turner. I don't think anybody in Philadelphia isn't. The low point in 2023 was on June 4th with an OPS of 642. I would be cheering if he had a 642 OPS. Right now, he is at a 216 batting average, 268 OBP with an OPS of just 595.
Oh my God.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
And his approach is just swing at everything. Like he can't pick up spin. He can't pick up velocity. Like I don't get it, because you saw him take great strides in 2025, winning the batting title last year, just being a productive leadoff hitter, and it showed in the overall team success. I mean, we had a great offensive season. You talked about our run differential last year. I think we were sixth in run differential last year. So like we had a much better plus minus in that sense. But Trey is completely lost. He needs, in my opinion, he needs a minimum 3-day. I would love to see it go even longer rest. He needs a break from just seeing the field.
Yeah, his approach it's not only swing at everything, it's also an extremely long swing. I think when he's in his slumps, that's his swing just looks long, slow. It reminds me a lot of another guy who had a bad approach and a very long swing for about 4 years. His name's Nick Castellanos. So that's how bad he looks right now. His defense is playing in concert with his offense. I mean, I'm seeing balls go off the heel of his glove that a major leaguer should be snatching up. His demeanor doesn't look good. He doesn't usually look fired up in any capacity, but you can just, if you see him live, I often look at the shortstop position because it interests me. I can just see his body language isn't there. Stoop shoulder, just not good energy. And if one were to put any stock into a certain coordinated fan support display a few years ago, maybe he needs something psychologically to bolster his performance. I'm inclined to think something negative, like you sit your ass down for at least a week, is the way to do that. I've never been for standing ovations unearned anyway, so that's not going to be my approach. But everything we've read about the guy, he is incessantly in the cages. I don't doubt that he continues to do that. Having him do that with no break to play a game for 3 hours for a week, maybe that's the ticket. You got to shake something up there. He's got to find his slot again, his eye again, his confidence again, because we can't afford for him not to. We're bound to Trey Turner, not just this year, but for 10 more. So while my gut instinct tells me that of all the contracts we've watched, and scratch our heads at after some time in this era, I think his is going to be the worst contract of all. But we got to squeeze whatever we can in this window out of him. Things that I've always thought about Trey Turner, how we could be handling him. I still don't know why he needs to be a shortstop. I'm not going to dig into that again, but like big shakeups should be on the table for him. A positional change would be one of them. Some argue for the outfield. I still argue that he and Stott should be flipped to optimize what their skill sets are. But yeah, this is where I want to see Don Mattingly perform differently than Topper ever did. Topper was not a big moves guy. He was not a shake things up guy. And I hope that this is the first show of that from Donnie Baseball, sitting him for maybe 3 days, maybe longer. That's all I could hope for right now on the Trey Turner front.
What confuses me though is over the weekend after the series, Don Mattingly says maybe Trey needs some time off, and then immediately plays him Monday against the Marlins, and is only out of the lineup today because he got hit by a pitch. So like, which way are we going with this? And it could be just the most important decision he has to make so far this year is how to handle this Trey Turner situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you brought up Turner's body language. And I think one thing that's extremely frustrating with him and Alec Boehm is that when they get in their own heads, they make their problem 1,000 times worse. And I say this as somebody who constantly lives inside his own head when playing slow pitch softball. I see on a ball moving 12 miles an hour how if I am in my head like don't foul it off, I'm going to foul it off. So now you got a guy out there throwing 98 with 28 inches of vertical drop or whatever. Yeah, it's impossible to hit that when you're in your head. And for all the struggles of a JT Realmuto or a Bryson Stott or somebody like that, I never look and think they are mentally defeated. I think they go into every at bat thinking with the exact same approach. No matter how it's playing at the plate, it doesn't carry over into the field. With Turner and Boehm, it carries over into the field. It carries over into their demeanor. You could see the look on their face. They think they are cooked before they even get in there. The reason I bring up that similarity is because I don't see any world where, and I hope I'm wrong, but I don't see any big moves coming from Don Mattingly because I just saw Alec Boehm hitting fourth. I don't see him doing what it takes, because both of those guys, when they're going bad, they need a breather. They just need it. You got to get him out of the lineup. Whatever you got to do. I'm just not confident it's going to happen. Like you said, he hypothesized, maybe he could use some time off and then immediately put him in the lineup. Because I also think those are the kind of guys that probably go to Mattingly and they're like, no, I need to be in there. I need to be like working through it. But that's not what they need. They're their own worst enemies in that way. So I don't doubt that Turner or even Boehm are trying really hard. If anything, I think they're both trying too hard when they're struggling, and they need to be protected from themselves. But I agree. I would love to see Turner get a few more games off, reset his head, and then come back and hit him fourth, hit him fifth, switch some things around, try it for a week, put Marsh up top, lefty, lefty, lefty. Who cares? What difference does it make? You hit all three of them against lefties anyway. You look at their splits; they're all hitting lefties just fine. Stick with this for a little bit and see what happens. And maybe Turner figures it out. And I'm watching Dave Roberts go through the same thing out here with Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts is another guy who tries way too hard. Obviously, supremely talented, future Hall of Famer. Wears his heart on his sleeve. When he struggles, he brings it out to the field. He cost Yamamoto a perfect game the other night. Now he's batting fourth. You got to try something. And I really don't know what the answer is here, but I don't think the fan base can be relied upon, nor should they have to save Trey Turner's season once every couple of years. So he needs to figure it out, and Mattingly needs to help him. I completely agree with that. One of the things that might make it a little bit more difficult is if you're thinking in the short term, obviously the Phillies do not have any reliable right-handed bats, but there was one guy who started to look like he was coming around to maybe becoming one of those, and now he is out probably for the season. Adolis Garcia, in a very normal turn of events, threw a baseball and his pectoral muscle ripped completely off his body. Run-of-the-mill kind of stuff. He's out. He's out. He's on the 60-day, I believe. He has been replaced by Derek Hill, kind of a guy who could play all three outfield positions, plays with a toothpick in his mouth. That's fun. Don't think he's going to offer you a whole lot more than that, but so far so good. I don't dislike what we've gotten out of Derek Hill, but how big of a blow is it for the Phillies to lose Garcia, especially given how he was performing in the few games before he went down?
Well, I just one correction, Pat. It was his lat muscle. It's in his back.
Yes.
No less bizarre.
Correct. Thank you.
And on a beautiful laser of a throw that I didn't think JT played correctly, could have been a game-changing out, but that's neither here nor there. The guy was finally producing some semblance of what we tried to sign him for. What crushes me about this injury is we have now paid $30 million for nothing in right field this season. And I'm not gonna go back and retread the Castellanos situation, but we really have to just indictment of the GM, $30 million for nothing in right field. We still have a gaping hole that has to be filled in some way this year. Adolis was going to be, I don't think we could have reasonably used him as a cleanup hitter, maybe at his best in the 5-hole. It was pretty clear that it was going to be luck, a lot of luck if he was going to look like he did in 2023. But the defense was the one thing that, he might have been the best right fielder in the league this year defensively. He at least brought some value there. And, Mike mentioned earlier that we're not a fundamentally sound team in close games. I kind of envisioned him in my most optimistic mode in the playoffs, making a huge stop or throw in a key moment in a playoff game. So now we don't even have that. It's a huge blow, even though we weren't getting much production out of him anyway. He did start to heat up a little bit before the injury, but this sucks. we don't have an answer in right field.
It's fascinating that you look at the back of his baseball card this season and your response is this sucks. It's like the idea of Adolis Garcia was always greater than what he actually performed at the level that he did. But he had that like inkling that he was starting to turn it around. He was starting to hit a little bit better, and his defense, throughout the whole season has been pretty darn good. But what it does is it makes 100%.
He is one of those guys whose body language wasn't affected. I liked his demeanor out on the field.
Absolutely.
So I'll say that was a guy I didn't have to worry about in that sense.
But one thing it does in this injury, if there is some sort of silver lining, is that it makes it abundantly clear that they cannot go into the postseason and get past the trade deadline without making a big move. And there is no longer the hope of Adolis turning it around and becoming that 4 or 5 hitter. He's not turning into 2023 Adolis Garcia because he's not going to be playing. He's not on the field. So now that hope and desire is gone, you gotta make the move and find somebody who can play every day in right field or any other position of value.
Mike Trout?
Yeah.
All right.
Pay down the contract.
I was like, I'm just gonna keep saying it because here's the reality of the situation. Listen, I don't know if this makes our situation better or worse to acknowledge this. But right-handed outfielders across baseball have been woefully underperforming this year. For all the talk we've had about Adolis Garcia and anyone else we've played out there, and by the way, sidebar, let me just say this. After sitting there and watching Edmundo Sosa in person play a whole game in left field, good Lord, do not put that man in the outfield anymore. It was brutal to watch. And I will be the first one to say I was dead wrong, and I will claim ignorance. Coming into this year, I was like, why don't we try Edmundo Sosa out there? How bad could he be? It's left field. I watched Pat Burrell play left field for a decade. It's easy. I watched him for 4 innings, and I was like, I cannot do this anymore. This is insane. Right-handed outfielders across baseball have been terrible. It's not just a Phillies problem. There are so few that have even an inkling of what might be a ceiling and would be available. And furthermore, would be available for what the Phillies could afford to pay, which in terms of prospects is very, very little. The advantage to a guy like Mike Trout is you're just eating, admittedly, a terrible contract. Even if he continues performing at his current level, it's a bad contract going forward. But I don't know what other, air quotes, big moves there could be that we would be able to pull off.
The Trout thing intrigues me only because it would force Middleton to face the reality of what has been set before him by Dombrowski. He's going to have to lift the ceiling and be willing to go over a luxury tax threshold if he wants to see anything of value come out of the trade deadline this year. I still just don't see any permutation that would allow us to be within the threshold we're at and improve our stock and not completely drain the farm system, which is thin to begin with. So I don't know enough about the Angels situation right now. From what I gather, the bill of goods that their fan base has been sold every year in the Trout era, that they're might just be good enough to compete. They're bottoming out, it seems, from what I gather. I'm hearing Joe Adele as another outfield option, by the way. But maybe they would finally be in a position to say, you know what, how about we start with this huge salary dump and give us Mike Trout for a relative song. Now, that sounds insane, but it is the Angels, and they haven't made many correct decisions since 2002. So,
Yeah.
if that's something that Middleton would be willing to work with, who knows what we can get Artie Moreno to do.
Yeah, without the benefit of having a deep farm system, you have to use the benefit of the deep financial pockets that Middleton has. There is no way to get past this trade deadline without taking on significant money. I mean, and actually improving the team without depleting that farm system. I mean, that's really the path that they have to consider.
Yep. That is the reality of the situation, and there's a lack of options, and I don't know what else they could do. As much as it pains me to say it, the best option might be for some of their players to stop being terrible. I mean, really, that
You
is
have gone
the most,
full Dombrowski with that thought.
but
He
it's
likes our
not.
club.
It's unfortunate, but it's not a lot. Like, look, if you're Dombrowski, obviously there's a lot of criticism to be levied at you for the job that you've done. I understand. And it's not a good public statement to make. It's not going to endear you to anybody. But before his head hits the pillow at night, there has to be some part of him that's like, if Alec Boehm would just hit 270 with 20 home runs, people would get off my ass. If JT Realmuto could get his OPS up to 720, I would look like a genius right now. If these guys who have been terrible were just merely kind of bad, nobody would be giving me shit right now. Okay? And I think that's kind of valid. And I think there is and it's so practical and everyone hates it, and I understand. And they used to hate when Daryl Morey would come into it and be like, well, the way I calculate it, we have about a 4% chance of winning the championship. And the fans are like, why are you not trying to get that number to 100? And he was like, well, realistically, this is how I see things in terms of these numbers and everything. I think you kind of have to be like that to be a GM, right? But it does seem insane, even though the correct answer might be waiting for Alec Boehm and JT Realmuto to have positive regression to the mean. That is the most realistic scenario to the Phillies hitting again. And it sucks. And I'm sorry to have to, support that idea, but it is what it is. Am I wrong?
You're right, Pat. You're right. Guys got to do what they're paid to do. All I can do at this point, in reflecting on Dombrowski's performance, is look at this past offseason and the quantity of decent players he could have gotten for very little money in comparison to the big contracts he handed out. I think he went for the big swings or the safe swings with the guys we already had on the roster, and with no regard for depth or value we could have gotten in the margins. And it just felt lazy. The offseason just felt so lazy. And here we are.
Yeah. Totally fair. Well, let's close this out on a more positive note. The All-Star Game is coming up, and it's going to be in Philadelphia. It's the 250th birthday of America. Happy birthday, America. Loved your UFC event. Was very classily done. Just great stuff, man. Shout out, America. You guys are killing it. Anyway, in the birthplace of America, 250 years later, the greatest spectacle in all of baseball outside of the World Series and the World Baseball Classic and the Field of Dreams game and, a bunch of other things. It's coming to Philadelphia, the Home Run Derby, the All-Star Game, and the All-Star Game voting is in full effect. Now, normally, full disclosure is something I would not care about. I think it is a joke of a process and has been for a long time. But with the game coming to Philadelphia, I thought we could talk about how the Phillies are faring in this voting. So, it is now way more complicated than it ever was. There are multiple rounds of voting and everything like that, but here is where the Phillies players currently stand in the first phase of voting. Catchers, JT Realmuto ranks third behind Drake Baldwin and Will Smith. He is getting doubled up by Baldwin. I don't see any world where he wins that. Bryce Harper hanging tough at first base. He is in third behind Freddie Freeman and Matt Olson, although it is closer. Second base, Bryson Stott is in second, right behind Ozzie Albies. Third base, Alec Boehm is in second, but getting lapped by Max Muncy. That's not going to happen. Shortstop, Trey Turner. Why would anyone vote for that? Designated hitter, Kyle Schwarber. I think in any other universe would probably be winning this in a landslide. Instead, he has to go against Ohtani, so he's in second there. And then outfielders, Brandon Marsh, I'm happy to see, is third in the current All-Star voting. Justin Crawford is 12th, and I believe that is it for Phillies players. So it looks like Marsh, from an offensive perspective, might be the most realistic option at this point. Of course, the pitching is not voted on by the fans. Do you pay any attention to these votes? Do you think it matters if the Phillies fans put their guys in the game? And give me a final projection. How many Phillies do you think are going to end up on the National League All-Star roster, and what are their names?
I'll start. First of all, I mean, the home bias couldn't be any more evident in some of these voting tallies. I mean, Jesus Christ, Alec Boehm second in the NL at third base. I think that we will have 5 members of the Phillies at the All-Star game. I think Bryce and Schwarber have earned it at this point. Marsh certainly. I would love to see Marsh crack the starting lineup. I don't think that we're there yet, but maybe. And then Sanchez and Duran. I'm upset that there's not a 6th, which would be Zach Wheeler, but I actually do feel that the starters in the NL are so stacked that I feel like he's gonna be on the bubble, and his late start to the season is what's going to burn him for all-star placement. I hope I'm wrong there, because you know how much I love that guy. But that's pretty cool. And going back to what we have said about Dombo, I mean, you got 6 all-stars. You should be looking at your GM as he did a pretty good job. And these are 6 all-stars, the 6 names that I mentioned, if Wheels does make it. That's not home bias. Those are guys who've earned a spot on this squad. So, yeah, that's what I'd like to see, and I think it has a good chance of happening.
Yeah, and a lot of the Braves and Dodgers that are ahead of the Phillies in the fan voting are well deserved. I mean, it's going to be painfully dominated by those 2 teams in the starting lineup. But the Phillies should have a good number of reserves. Whether it's I think it will end up being the 5 or 6 that you mentioned, and I think it's great that Marsh is currently in the top 3 for the starting outfield, because I think that's his best shot, honestly. Because the Phillies will have the pitching that you'll want to get in, and the Harper and Schwarber combo that I think are kind of locks just for the name value and performance, but. I really want to see a Harper-Schwarber battle in the Home Run Derby. I don't know if it's going to happen, but that would just be so entertaining.
I'll tell you what I want to see, and maybe I shouldn't even say this on the air, but who cares? I've told you guys off the air, I have been trying my best to angle into being a producer for the Home Run Derby on Netflix. I've sent a few texts to a guy I know who could make that happen. Had a couple of decent exchanges, and then I was in Milwaukee, and I was drunk because I was in Milwaukee. And what else are you gonna do? And I just texted him. I haven't spoken to him in a couple weeks, and internally I've been like, I feel like I would probably know by now, so I don't think it's gonna happen. So I had a few too many on a boat, and I'm out on the river, and I just text the guy. I'm like, "Yo, can you guys add a segment where before they open the doors, you let Schwarber take 50 swings with a metal bat and just see what happens?" And he never responded. So I don't think I'm gonna get the gig, but God, would I love to see that. Just just hitting balls out of the stadium entirely. I think it would be great.
It would be
And
I
great.
think it would be
I'd
incredible
actually worry about my
television.
house. I think I'd board up my windows if you gave him a metal bat.
it would be so good. We need to make it happen. But short of that, yes, Harper Schwarber in the home run derby would be absolutely incredible. There's been a lot of great performers, and I really hope Wheeler makes the team, and I think he will, if only because starting pitchers, and we all saw it last year when it came down to Mizorowski, who was what, 6 starts into his major league career, and he ended up on the team. A lot of guys get cold feet, or they start the Sunday before and then they're ineligible or whatever. Otani is not going to pitch in the game. He will just be there as a DH. I think a lot of the guys ahead of Wheeler are going to drop out, and I think Wheels will make it as a reserve because of that. But there's a lot of deserving players on the Phillies. I just don't think most of them are the most deserving. So I'm actually okay with this voting. I would love to see Marsh get in as a starter. He's earned it. Nobody else on the Phillies has earned it, but that's not to say they can't be on the team. So yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of Phillies represented there, and I think you guys nailed it in terms of who they are.
I gotta say, like Marsh, he was interviewed about his prospects of making the All-Star team, and you just saw him light up. Like it's like a dream come true. That's got to be so cool. And you really think about. I mean, the All-Star game was such a big deal to me as a kid, and I think it would still be a big deal to me if it were played the way it used to be played, managed the way it used to be managed, and had some kind of consequence, like home field in the World Series for that league. That stuff was cool. But yeah, like I want to see Marsh have that, because you go to somebody the back of a baseball card or a baseball reference page, and you see that little italic or whatever, or the asterisk saying that year he was an all-star. And yeah, you like to see a guy get a shot who might have thought at this stage of his career that wasn't in the cards. So yeah, I get a little romantic about that, seeing a guy make his first all-star team like that.
And the other aspect of it, because it's in Philly this year, there's a group of Phillies players that you will always remember because they were all-stars the year the All-Star game was in Philly. It's like Ricky Bottalico's claim to fame, let's be honest.
That's right.
Yeah, forgot about that. I'm a Heathcliff Slocum man when it comes to obscure Phillies All-Stars. I forgot Ricky Bo was in there the year it was in Philly. No, it's a great thing, and I really do hope that that Marsh makes it and starts, because frankly he deserves it in a year where the Phillies have drastically underperformed offensively. He has been the brightest shining star, the most unexpected diamond in the rough that we could ever hope for. And I hope he gets to start that game, and I hope he gets to lead off from now, at least until the All-Star break. Put him there and just see what happens. Phillies win tonight. They pick up the win. They go to 40-33. As you're watching this, they are in position to make the playoffs. And we just have to hope. I think that's what we're all going to be looking for as we approach the second half of the season, that they can start to face pitchers that they might see in October and put together an approach, put together some at-bats, give us reason to believe that they won't be completely overmatched if and when they face those guys in the playoffs. Gentlemen, I think we covered most of what we need to here. Brad Keller's headed to the IL. We didn't mention that. Now we have. I don't really have anything else to say about that. Is there anything we missed? Anything you guys want to talk about before we get out of here?
No, I mean we got the Mets this weekend, and let's make sure we give them the business. I will hate them till the day I die. I don't care whether they're in last place or not. We could win 21-2, and I'd still be like, wish we hadn't given up those 2 runs.
Yeah.
So let's bring it this weekend.
I love it. I love it. All right, well, there it is. Phillies, they're rolling right now. They're about to beat the hell out of the Mets, and we will be back next week to talk about it. Until next time, I'm Pat Barker. That's Carl Bacuti. That's Mike Sambuco. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week on the Specific Jawns podcast. Go Phils.
Go Phils.